A lot of people in my generation, the young millennials, the older Gen Z, they're deciding to skip over the starter home and move straight into that forever home. And I don't necessarily think that's a good idea. Here are three reasons why I think starter homes are a must. Number one, it's less stressful to enter the market financially. Number two, you really learn how to maintain a home and all the expenses that go along with owning a home. And number three, you don't necessarily know what you do or don't want in a home until you start living in one, owning one, maintaining one. Those things that you think are really important or aren't important to you now, that might change after you start living in a home. Let's dive deeper into this. It's much less stressful to enter the market in a starter home. Say you get approved for $350,000. That doesn't mean you need to go spend $350,000. That means you're really pushing your limits there. That's the max they're going to give you. Maybe drop down to $250,000. Find a nice ranch that, 3 bed, 1 bath, something like that, that you're going to be comfortable living in for the next 5 to 10 years, that you can buy with less money down and have a lower monthly payment. Because as you get in there those first few years, you're going to learn that owning a home is expensive, right? So monthly, you're going to have all your utilities, your internet, maybe you need pest control, maybe you need to pay a lawn care service. All of those things add up. And as you get older, of course, other things come up that start becoming more expensive, like kids. We've learned recently kids are very expensive. Number two, I truly believe you should learn how to maintain a home on a smaller scale before you decide to take that jump into a bigger home. Um, we lived in a townhome first, so we learned how to maintain the interior of a home, and we didn't have to worry about the roof or the siding or cutting the grass or weed whacking, any of that stuff. So I really got to focus on the HVAC, the water heater, the plumbing, the electric. You learn a lot, and you learn some of these things are really expensive that you didn't know before on a smaller scale versus when you buy a nice big house. When it comes time for a new roof or new insulation, new siding, new windows, I mean, these items are really expensive. It just makes more sense and will be much less stressful for you to learn how to do that on a smaller scale before you graduate into a bigger house. Number three, you don't necessarily know what you're going to want most in your forever home until you've owned a home. Things change, right? You might think you want this nice big yard like we have here, but what you might not realize is that it takes me at least 2 hours every week to cut the grass and weed whack. If I have other projects, like I had to mulch all around my house and trees, I spent about 6.5 hours doing yard work last week. And you might not want that, but you might think you do until you start maintaining it. So you start with this smaller yard, and maybe you realize that that's as much work as you need, and you actually really enjoy sitting out and enjoying that yard. You realize you don't need the nice big yard. You wouldn't know that until you maintained one and lived in a starter home. Or maybe you think you want this nice big massive mansion, but after living in a smaller house and realizing that it could be hard to keep a house clean, and you're constantly cleaning up, that you might not want that big house and you might settle for something in the middle. For us personally, I think the biggest thing we learned in our townhome, we lived there 4 years before we bought this house, we learned that it's really important for us to have a outdoor living space, like a deck or patio, right off the kitchen. Because if I wanted to grill at my townhouse, I had to take the food, walk through the living room, walk downstairs, walk through the family room, and then go outside to grill. If I needed another plate, slice of cheese, whatever I needed, I'm walking all the way back upstairs, back outside. So it's just, we didn't like it. So we learned we needed this nice deck right outside of our kitchen. And we wouldn't have known that if we didn't already go ahead and live in that starter home and realize what is and isn't important to us. Of course, there's always exceptions. I've worked with some clients that, they're 24, 25, and they really have their head on straight and they know what they want, and they buy their forever home and they're loving it still, and they probably will live there forever. But I think the majority of the time it's better to be more comfortable financially and buy below your means, learn how to maintain a home, and really take the time to figure out what you do and don't want in that forever home before you buy it. If you have any questions, any counters, any discussions, please feel free to reach out. My name is Jake McVeigh with McVeigh Group at Coldwell Banker, and I am a agent and investor out of the southwest suburbs of Chicago, specifically here in Bolingbrook, Illinois.